Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, maybe there's something wrong with me? Maybe it's the way people treat you. Maybe it's the way life keeps letting you down. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll leave this video seeing your pain, your story, and your purpose through a completely different lens. If this resonates, hit the like button and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's start this healing together. Why you push people away even when all you want is closeness. Why you sabotage opportunities the moment they get too real. Why joy feels temporary and shame feels permanent. Maybe it's the way you wake up with this heaviness in your chest, like the world is too loud, too cruel, too fast, and somehow you just can't keep up. Before we go any further, stop scrolling and take a deep breath. This message is for you. You've spent your whole life trying to fix yourself. Maybe you've read self-help books, gone to therapy, tried meditation, listened to every podcast about trauma and healing, but deep down you still feel, and most of us are still breathing the air of a culture that celebrates burnout, numbs pain with distraction, and calls disconnection independence. But maybe those emotions aren't the problem. Maybe they're your soul's way of screaming, "This isn't the life I meant to live." Off like you're never truly enough. Like everyone else has the answers, except you. You wonder why you can't love like others do. That demands productivity while your soul is begging for rest. You're unraveling all the masks they gave you so you can find your real face underneath. A world that values appearance over truth, control over connection, noise over meaning. People will question your growth. They'll tell you you've changed when, in reality, you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. Let me tell you something hard but important. You're not broken. It's a pattern, and it has a name. You were simply shaped by a world that rewards performance over authenticity, that teaches you to smile while you're in pain, the one that still remembers what freedom feels like. The one that cries not because she's weak, but because she's tired of pretending. Think about how many times you minimized your truth so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Think about how often you've betrayed yourself, your needs, your dreams, your emotions just to keep the peace. It looks like crying in the car, then still showing up. It looks like unlearning everything they told you about who you're supposed to be. You realize the world didn't prepare you to thrive, it trained you to survive. But your soul was never meant to live in a cage of shame. How to act, what was acceptable. You weren't taught to trust your inner voice, you were taught to silence it. Your anger was too much. Your tears were dramatic. Your questions were disrespectful. So, piece by piece, you abandoned yourself to be loved. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what if no one ever showed you how? What mask are you still wearing just to be accepted? What part of yourself have you been hiding because the world told you it was too much? It's a sign that your soul is still alive, that you haven't given up, that you're still searching for something deeper than survival, something real. From a young age, you were told who to be. That's not dysfunction, that's survival. And now, here you are, an adult, trying to heal a wound that was never your fault to begin with. But here is the truth. You can heal in the same environment that made you sick. You think something's wrong with you because you're anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed. You're not broken. You're awakening. You're not lost. And that's terrifying, because healing is not a straight line. It's messy, lonely, and often misunderstood. Let's go even deeper. Think about how much of your pain comes from trying to fit into spaces that never saw you. This isn't a coincidence. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive in a world that punishes vulnerability. But beneath that persona lives your true self. So today, I invite you to do something radical. Stop trying to be okay. Stop performing happiness. Stop faking confidence. Stop pretending the world hasn't hurt you. Instead, start honoring your pain. Because pain is a portal. The world will try to convince you that you need fixing, but maybe what you really need is to come home to yourself. And healing, it doesn't look like perfection. It looks like sitting with your emotions without judgment. It looks like saying no without guilt. This is the beginning of something sacred, because once you stop seeing yourself as the problem, you start reclaiming your power. So here's your first invitation. Pause and reflect. Drop it in the comments. Let's start this journey together. Because in the next part, we are going to talk about how this fractured world conditions you to abandon yourself and how to begin coming back to wholeness. But for now, just remember, you're not too sensitive. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're healing in a world that forgot how to feel. Let's talk about the invisible prison. Most people live in the one made of expectations, silence, and suppressed emotions. Not bars of steel, but beliefs passed down like inheritance. Be a good boy. Don't speak up. That's just the way life is. You didn't choose those messages. They were downloaded into you before you were even conscious enough to resist. And that's the most terrifying part. You didn't even know was happening. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear. It festers. It becomes the shadow. It becomes the hidden parts of ourselves we deny, suppress, or hide because they don't fit the mold. But here's the truth. Your freedom lives in your shadow. Your light triggers their darkness. Your healing highlights their denial. And so they'll call you crazy, too emotional, too much. And the people around you, they're often more comfortable with your mask than your truth. Let that sink in. The more authentic you become, the more resistance you'll face, not because you're wrong, but because your truth exposes their illusion. But maybe you've spent your whole life being too much for people who were never ready to be real. Here's the moment it clicks. Every part of your worth was measured by how well you could conform, how little space you took up, how well you could pretend. You're not too much. You were simply born to awaken in a world that profits from your numbness. The system isn't broken. It was built this way on purpose. From the time you were a child, you were taught to seek validation outside of yourself. Good grades, likes, praise, performance. And now, as an adult, you feel that inner war. You want to speak, but the voice shakes. You want to leap, but the fear screams louder. You want to live, but something inside keeps whispering. Who do you think you are? Because once you see that your job doesn't define you, your trauma doesn't own you, your past doesn't limit you, you become a threat to every system that relied on your obedience. That voice isn't yours. It's a ghost and echo of all the times you were told you weren't enough. But here's the truth. They never told you. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who knows who they are. Not because they're loud, but because they're unshakable. Not because they fight, but because they see. Not because they want power, but because they've reclaimed their own. And that, right there, is what they're afraid of. A society that depends on your silence cannot handle your awakening. You become free. But freedom isn't found in comfort. It's found in the fire. It's found in the nights you cry out for answers. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. It's found in the moments when you lose everyone because you finally chose yourself. You will be misunderstood. That's your truth, and it's been waiting for you to listen. You will lose people. You will walk alone. But in that aloneness, you'll finally meet yourself. And that self is not fragile. That self remembers. That self has power. That self has vision. Jung said, in each of us there is another whom we do not know. That's your soul. So here's the invitation. Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's your turn. Stop doubting the voice inside just because the crowd doesn't hear it. You don't need approval to be authentic. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need validation to be free. Because here's the secret. You were never lost. You were just buried beneath everything you were taught to be. And now you're remembering. Take your breath, let that truth hit. You are not stuck. You are rising. Let me ask you a question that might shake your core. What would your life look like if you stopped pretending completely? If this message resonates with you, stay with me for part 3. We're about to explore the exact ways you've been silencing your truth and how to break free from the emotional patterns that keep you chained, even when everything on the outside looks fine. Let's be honest, most of us were never taught how to feel. We were taught how to function. Smile for the picture. Be polite. Don't cry. Be strong. Perform. Achieve. Please. And somewhere along the way, we became strangers to ourselves. We know how to scroll for hours, but not how to sit in silence. We know how to meet deadlines, but not how to meet our own needs. Because no one around you was talking about the truth. No one told you that feeling broken is often the beginning of becoming whole. We know how to chase approval, but not how to offer ourselves love. In other words, healing doesn't mean deleting your wounds. It means meeting them. It means sitting beside your sadness and asking, "What do you need from me?" It means welcoming back every part of you that you had to exile in order to be accepted. The world taught us that being normal meant being numb. And when your soul started waking up, when your pain became too loud to ignore, what did you do? You blamed yourself. In fact, the more whole you become, the more uncomfortable it may feel to stay in environments that once felt safe. You'll outgrow people, patterns, beliefs, and it won't always be graceful. It might feel like losing everything, and maybe for the first time, you'll feel peace without needing permission. You'll be tempted to go back to what's familiar, to the noise, the roles, the performance. But hear me clearly. You are not meant to shrink for the comfort of others. You are not here to live a half-life because you're afraid to be too much. But what you're really doing is losing your false self. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes not by perfection, but by integration. Soft, not the self the world demanded, not the self your family expected. The real you, the one you buried under layers of fear, shame, and approval-seeking. Don't distract. Don't scroll it away. Just notice it. I feel sad right now. I feel lonely. I feel unworthy. Give it a name. Sit with it. Let it breathe. Loud, quiet, angry, loving, everything. Think of how many times you were too much for the wrong people, too emotional, too quiet, too intense, too different. And each time a piece of you went into hiding. A little child inside you whispered, "Okay, why a small rejection sends you spiraling? Why silence from someone you love feels like punishment? Why you overthink, overgive, overwork? Why you feel alone even in a room full of people? I'll stop being me if it means I'll be loved." But that's not love. That's survival disguised as love. We talk about how to live with courage in a world that thrives on fear and how to truly embody the truth that you were never broken to begin with. And now, as an adult, you may still carry those abandoned pieces like ghosts. You don't know why certain things trigger you. That's not because you're broken. That's because no one ever gave you the tools to meet your inner world with compassion. Let us say this out loud together. I am no longer abandoning myself just to be accepted. Let that sink in. Because here's the truth. The world won't always reward your healing. You're shedding layers that were never truly you. And in that rawness, in that terrifying, holy, beautiful undoing, you'll start to feel your real self underneath. Your transformation is not behind schedule. Your soul knows the way. It's not easy. You were born to be whole, not perfect. Whole. That means you'll be messy. Jung called this the path of individuation, becoming the most authentic version of yourself. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. And presence is the seed of wholeness. So let's talk about how to begin. Start small. The next time you feel an emotion rise, dante room, and then ask yourself, what does this part of me need? Not how do I fix it, but how do I listen? This alone is revolutionary, because every time you listen to yourself without judgment, you build trust with your inner world. And healing happens in the presence of safety, not shame. So if you've ever been waiting for someone to tell you that it is okay to be exactly where you are, here it is. You're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to not have it all figured out. You're allowed to feel lost, confused, exhausted, and still worthy of love. Your healing is not late. All you need to do is stop rushing. Let yourself be in this moment, because what's coming next is not a new version of someone else. It's the first true version of you. And if no one's told you lately, you're doing better than you think. So before we move to the final part of this journey, I want you to reflect on something powerful. What's one belief about yourself that you're ready to let go of? Drop it in the comments. Let's make this real, because in part 4, we're going to bring everything together. Stay with me. Maybe the most radical thing you can do in this world is choose yourself. Not in the selfish, surface-level way people sometimes think, but in the deepest, truest, soul-honoring way. Choosing yourself means showing up for the parts of you the world told you to hide. It means becoming loyal to your inner truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Especially then. You were never broken, but you were wounded in a broken system. A world that profits from your insecurity, your shame, your doubt. The light and the shadow, the strength and the sensitivity, the chaos and the calm. A world that taught you to measure your worth by your productivity. A culture that told you your softness was weakness, your tears were flaws, your silence was failure. But Carl Jung taught us something sacred, that our wholeness lies in integration, not in perfection, not in performance, but in embracing the totality of who we are. And here's the truth most people avoid. Real healing is not glamorous. It's not all crystals, yoga mats, and smiling in the mirror. Sometimes healing looks like crying on the kitchen floor. It looks like saying no when your whole body is shaking. It looks like walking away from people you thought would never leave and sitting in that ache until it no longer defines you. Your job is to remember who you are beneath the noise. Healing means feeling, but finding youth that existed before the trauma, before the conditioning, before the noise. And feeling means freedom. Because once you stop running from yourself, once you stop editing your emotions to fit someone else's comfort, you start to feel alive again. That's what this whole journey has been about, not fixing you. And here's what I want you to hear with your whole heart. You are not behind that relationship ending. Maybe it was making space for real connection, that job you lost. Maybe it was forcing you to pursue your soul's work. That feeling of, I don't belong here. Maybe it's your soul whispering. Because you're meant to create something new. You stop negotiating your worth. You rest when you're tired. You say no when it hurts. You say yes when it heals. You are not too damaged. You are not too late. You are right on time for your own becoming. The truth is, what you think is falling apart might actually be falling together. The world will always try to define you, put you in a box, label your worth. But your job is not to fit in. You are not what they told you. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are a soul learning to come home to itself. So what now? You begin again, with more softness, with more courage, with more truth. You start talking to yourself like someone you love. You give yourself permission to live, not just exist. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to be fearless to move forward. You're rising. You don't need anyone else to validate the wholeness that already lives inside you. And when the world tells you to shrink, to silence, to settle, you rise anyway, because you've remembered the truth. You were never broken. You were becoming. So now I ask you, before we end this video, what if everything you've been through wasn't meant to break you, but to wake you? What if every pain, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was leading you back to the most powerful version of yourself? Help me awaken more souls like yours, the version that no longer begs for love, the version that no longer fears being alone, the version that walks into every room knowing, I belong here just as I am. That version of you is not a dream. It's already inside you, waiting, breathing, beating. All you have to do is let them out. So if you've made it this far, I want you to leave a comment with this secret phrase, I am the revolution of my soul, to let me know that you are not just surviving anymore. You're reclaiming your story. You're becoming your own healer. You're not broken. The world is. And you're the beginning of something new. If this message resonated with your heart, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And now, I'll leave you with this question for the comments. What part of yourself are you finally ready to stop hiding?